two big issues until we get a picture of what the governor's going to propose, and of course that doesn't mean it's going to end up that way. These numbers aren't going to change too much. We may make an adjustment in the automotive excise tax come the end of February, beginning of March. I don't know if, Greg, you want to speak to any of that at this point.
Everything's been said. It's preliminary.
So, I mean, the things that I see from this is clearly we have to make some inroads on the health insurance.
Clearly.
And we also have to, begin to start to take a look at operationally what we can do to balance the budget.
What do you, can you give me an example of what you mean by that statement?
Well, let's assume that we have to find $300,000 and it's just not sitting out there. All right, so what do? We lay off employees? Do we reduce overtime? Do we close the library? Do we eliminate youth services? Do we just do across the board and let our managers come up with means of operating with some flat rate across the board?
I think
Do we
you have to look at reform.
do we cut into reserves? I mean, the pressure's going to come from the school department.
I understand.
Associated,
And I don't want to get into that, but, you talk about the 300,000 and you say the operational things, but, we've all talked about reforms. Over the years, this board, before I've gotten here, talked about reforms. And isn't this a great opportunity now to kind of get the word out? Let's start working across the board, at least in the general government side, what we can do. Because it doesn't always have to be cuts.
That's why the numbers are
Oh,
up
I
there.
know, but I was just curious of what you mean, because right away you went to the youth services, you brought that up.
No,
and
I'm
just saying,
I'm not
I'd like us to
proposing
try
any
to.
one of those at this point, okay?
No, I know you're not proposing anything, but I'd like to, we should set the tone, and reform can be a good way to do that. And
But,
maybe Greg and his department heads can,
Reform implies making changes that are going to reduce staff.
it also could
because
create
it's-
some new revenues too. I don't know.
Well-
These people may know, I don't know. I've tried wrapping my head around it a lot. I mean, unfortunate this year, until we have the wastewater in place and we really make some inroads there that potentially change the levy limits on some properties, we know where we stand on that one.
That's not going to solve our problem for
I know.
next year, obviously. That's 3, 4, 5 years down the road.
Or more.
I know.
Right. I mean, we're talking what we need here. We need the employees
Yeah.
to come across the table and be willing to give significant concessions and reach certain agreements with health insurance and contracts. It's the only way we get out of this with hopefully preserving jobs. I mean, that's what I've been singing for a long time. And we've been fortunate in this community through the leadership we've had on this board, and the cooperation we've had with all the members of the board over the 3 years I've been on it, that we haven't had to lay anyone off in this community. I think that's kudos to everyone who has sat in one of these chairs, because you can reach across town, all the surrounding communities. I would bet you that there's not one other community that's been able to say that. But now this is the time that our employees must see the light on this preliminary budget that we have facing us, that they need to step up and take a role here and help us meet this gap. That's the way we're able to solve this before we talk about cuts, eliminating the library, eliminating youth services, things that I don't think the community wide wants to accept those things. But in order to avoid that, we need our employees to face reality here in terms of certain situations, health insurance being the big number here.
Just under the current estimate, again, you're assuming a change in the health plan design, which is a $500,000 issue. So really this $1.2 million problem if we're looking at current level services, and nothing else changing, is really 1.7.
If you assuming, well,
If we're talking status quo,
status quo,
level services with the,
Right,
no
there'd
change in
be
health
an
insurance, there's
additional
another
$500,000
So it's really
shortfall.
$1.7 million we're looking at.
Yep.
Your assumption under the current estimate, level services budget, is assuming already a change in the healthcare
Yep.
plan
Correct.
design
That's
without
true.
You're right.
negotiating.
That's
So
true.
we're really looking at a $1.7 million problem or issue here for current level services, everything remaining status quo. It's not 1.2.
that's true,
So
Steve.
there's another $500,000 or $502,000 in the shortfall, should be up in the shortfall category,
That's right.
if we're gonna truly reflect the level services at current status quo costs. Am I correct?
You're correct, and in hindsight, maybe it should have been presented that way.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to
Yeah.
sort through the numbers here
No,
again,
good point.
and again, so your level services current estimate is actually a better case scenario, rather than,
Oh, yeah. Best
rather than a
case.
current scenario.
It's actually the best case.
That's the best case under current level services.
No, you said it, Bob, when you gave the presentation, you said, this assumes us
Yeah,
having
no,
some
I- I- I
healthcare
understand, yes,
reform.
but
I'm
But
trying to really get it
we don't
around-
depict it on the chart. So if this chart actually gets around town, it probably should have a footnote on it to make sure it says that on it. We probably
We
should.
should just have the 502,000 up
Add it
there,
in.
and then,
Yeah.
and then we say, and listen, until we come to an agreement, or take some sort of action,
Yeah.
this is what we're looking at. So it's really
And-
1.7. And again, that's a shared cost, fixed cost, shared cost between both general government and schools. It's taken out right off the top. So,
Okay.
Sean, the stuff that you brought up, I completely agree with you. I'm on board 100%. But one of the things I need some help with, and we've talked about it in some executive sessions meetings, so I'll bring it up a little bit here, is I need some help in understanding those items we all talked about related to our employee contracts. And, you know, Greg, you've heard me say this, I'd like to see those costs. And I know you've taken these action items to come back to us with those costs associated, annual costs associated with certain items, which I won't bring up in public, but I think you know what I'm referring to. And I'm not sure when we can get that information, but it would really be helpful for us to bring those out and start running some scenarios.
just somewhat in relation to that, and again, some of those issues that we were talking about, or that you're alluding to, don't have short-term, significant short-term effects necessarily, but have truly significant long-term positive impact from a budgeting standpoint. You know,
I would love to
might
agree
clo-
with you,
might close
but
the
I haven't
gap-
seen
It'll
it.
close the gap a little bit, but not to
Again,
the degree that we need to do it. And again, I'd like to see the numbers too, but it's, you know, I agree, a lot of those items that we're talking about in collective bargaining, we're gonna be talking about in collective bargaining, would have good long-term positive effects on things from
Yep.
a budgetary standpoint. But again, as the chairman pointed out, you know, we do need the school's cooperation on a lot of this too, as far as what's happened. And again, what we ask of our employees, and what we've received from our employees has been significantly different than what the school department has received in the way of concessions thus far.
Yep.
And we can't, at a 67-33 split, necessarily close the gap without some sort of concessions and assistance from all sides of government and the community as a whole. So it's, therein lies part of the issue too, as we look to.
Yeah, that's a
to
really
close
good
these
point.
gaps. They have contracts that are already settled and obligations that they have to meet, so that,
This time
Well,
around, they only have one.
Yeah, but it's their biggest one. It's their
One big
teacher's
one.
contract still has 1 year remaining.
yeah, one big
So,
one.
Now-
One big one, which brings us into fiscal year 2012,
right.
so.
but if you look at, I had an opportunity to go through the school budget, the FY11 stuff they sent around. And if you look at that, 79.7% of that budget is salaries.
Right.
That's pretty hefty. That's a 6.1% increase they've had in the last year. Last year alone, 6.1%. So no one's getting 6.1% increases anymore. I mean, there isn't any company out there that I know of doing that. There isn't any municipality out there I know that's doing that. And I know, Greg, you haven't been able to have that opportunity for your staff either. So that's kind of a wake-up call. It's just a reality. It is what it is. And you know what? I've heard a few of the members on this board say, the employees deserve it. We all know they deserve it. But unfortunately, we just can't afford to do it. It's not realistic. It's not sustainable.
Deserve what, 6%? I don't say
You-
that.
Well,
No, I mean.
I do.
It can't be affordable, it's not affordable, yeah.
But they deserve it. I mean, I see how hard they work. My kids have gone through the school system here, they're going through the school system here, and I see the quality, and it's worth every penny of it as far as I'm concerned. But unfortunately, we're in a situation where it's just not affordable or sustainable. And it goes along with the benefits, too. You know, let's step back and take a sip of reality. You go back and read every benefit in these contracts, and they're really out of touch with reality. But I don't begrudge them anything. I don't want to take anything away from them, but when you step back and you read them, I've got to be realistic and what's sustainable, not only for this coming year, for 2012, but for going forward. But that's a lot. So I was surprised to read that, 79.7%, 6%, 6.1% increase.
I would have guessed 82, 84.
Yeah,
Yeah,
well.
you know, because that's traditionally, it's always been up around 80%.
But, you know, also, their transportation services increased 14%. So they've had some challenges as well. And I don't know how you solve those things. I mean, the price of fuel keeps going up. So they have the school board, I give them a lot of credit. They have a lot of big issues they gotta face here. So, and I would love, we can help them if they ask for the help. I'm not sure how we can, but I'm one to believe you never suffer in silence, so we should try to work together. And I think, Steve, you bring up a really good suggestion, and that is, we go out and look at things for our employees, and what we want to suggest in regards to collective bargaining, it would be good if we could at least share some of those common ideas.
And those have been shared with inside the financial planning team meetings that we've had, that Bob and I attend. So I think both sides are on the same page in terms of issues we'd like to address in contracts. Unfortunately, on their side, the teacher contract is just a beast to deal with, to say the least. And unfortunately, I think this is just not in North Reading, but throughout the state, that teachers assume that those step increases, they don't consider those raises. I don't quite understand it, but when they're getting a cost of living of
They have to.
1.75
Yeah,
plus
you have to.
3% step increase, that's a pay raise to me. But I think that's something that needs to be addressed in a statewide issue, because my understanding is steps are included in every contract, almost every teacher contract in every municipality. So it's not a problem that can be solved directly here, but I think they need to start addressing certain things that they can have some control over. And I think both, if you read the transcript, I think both Mr. Venezia and Mr. Webster realize that, and they understand it, and I think the other members understand it as well. At least what was expressed in our financial planning team meetings. So I don't think there's a divide. I think there's an open communication, and both sides recognize issues that need to be addressed contractually, that need to be addressed.
I think to keep in mind also is, there shouldn't be any real surprise here. We projected that 2012, coming out of the economic downturn, was going to be the hardest because, one is reserves have been squeezed. Two is that, the federal stimulus money is gone away. And actually, that school number is being reduced by
350 or 375?
375.
When you say the school number, you're talking
This
level services number?
Fiscal 2012 school number, right? Right. They've got an offset in there of $375,000, which is additional ARE money that they got this year they're not using.
That they are or are not?
Are not.
They're not.
So they're using it as an offset, so their budget number, the shortfall number that the 900, let's look at the 900,000, reflects the fact that using some additional one-time money in the 2012 budget.
They are using.
They are using it,
And
yes.
that is $300-some-odd thousand?
It's about 350.
375.
So that makes that
Yeah.
a 2 million instead of a 1.7?
Yeah, so,
I'd like to make another suggestion for going forward, is that when we look at this, we should look at the 2012 budget, obviously we have to do that, but we should look at the 2013 budget and maybe the 14 budget. Because maybe